Hello and welcome again to Double Narratives with Dr. Hanji. In our previous video, we looked at understanding sexuality and what sexuality is all about. And I also said several times in the video that if you do not understand your sexuality, you don't have a business being in a relationship in the first place, because it's just the basics. So today we're going to consider, how does the knowledge of sexuality help with our everyday communication? How does knowing about our sexuality and the sexuality of, say, our children or our partner, how does it help in terms of communication in order for us to have better relationships? Now, I said that sexuality is an awareness of ourself in terms of sexual preference, what we wish to look like, and how we want to express our sexual desires. So today we're going to look at what are those important aspects of the knowledge of sexuality that can aid everyday communication. The knowledge of sexuality is important for so many reasons. The first is self-awareness. We must be able to discover who we are and how we relate to other people sexually. What are our turn-ons? What turns us on in people? Is it physical? Is it cerebral? Is it emotional? Is it spiritual? It's very important. Let's take, for instance, people who naturally gravitate towards being around pastors or wanting, for instance, to be pastors' wives. These are people that usually they get attracted to spiritual things. Their sexuality turn-on is usually tilted towards very spiritual things. And you'll find out that they can go the long haul, when it comes to prayers and fasting, and the more spiritual their partner is, the more they are sexually attracted to them. Another very important reason why you should know your sexuality is so as to be able to raise your children properly. I cannot overemphasize this. You need to discover their sexuality, and the only way to discover their sexuality is by talking to them and asking them questions bordering on sexuality. So as parents and as guardians, we need to up our games in terms of knowing about sexuality and asking children questions or asking our young adults questions in order to help them also to discover their sexuality. This way they are able to make more informed choice of life partners, and they are able to, you can guide their expression of sexuality. We said in the last video that sexuality is always, induced or are stimulated sometimes by the society, the environment, and things we take in, films we watch. If, for instance, somebody has done a lot of watching of pornographic films, and then their sexuality can be tilted towards that, you might want to correct some, notions that a young adult might have about sexuality that has been derived from watching pornography, for instance. So it's very important as parents that we discover our sexuality and we try to discover our children's sexuality in order for us to be able to raise them better and guide them rightly. Another reason why it's important that we discover our sexuality is to be able to choose, of course, better partners for ourselves. We discussed in the last video that sometimes our expression of sexuality is either towards the same sex, towards the opposite sex, or sometimes in very covert ways. In order for us to be compatible with people, we have to also have some sexuality compatibility as well. I also emphasize that sexuality is not about making love or who you make love with or how often you make love. It can be expressed in that vein, but it's actually not totally that. So you need to understand your partner's sexuality in order for you to be able to pick good partners and to understand where your partner is coming from. Why is my partner frigid? Why is my partner not requesting sex frequently? Or why is my partner just enthralled by the idea of lovemaking? Understanding our sexuality is going to help us to be able to communicate better with them and, of course, understand them better. Another thing we need to consider as one of the major reasons for understanding sexuality is the society. Now, the society has a stereotype system that, of course, believes of what should be and what should not be. We need to understand our society vis-a-vis how we express our sexuality. One, so that we can be accepted within the society. Two, in case that our sexuality and the way we express our sexuality is, different from our immediate society, we can know ways in which to go about it. Now, I am not an advocate of any type of sexuality, but I am aware there are different types of sexuality, and they express themselves in different forms, and we cannot live in denial of this. And so that is why communication is important, that we know how our partner, of course our children, and of course people we are in relationship with express their sexuality in order for us to have better lives and of course understand people's perspectives. Another reason why it's important is so that we can access sexual education if there is need for us to access sexual education. When you discover your sexuality, don't forget that I said sexuality is ever changing and dynamic. Let's take for instance somebody who has been enthralled by pornography and has defined or his or her sexuality via what they say in pornography. A sexual education can begin to teach this. That is why we cannot but teach sex. We cannot but teach sexuality. We cannot but begin to add it to one of the items that we raise our children with and we nurture our relationships with. Communication is not complete without us expressing our sexuality. We are all sexual animals. And what better way can we express our sexuality if we really do understand our sexuality and the forms in which we can express them? Sexuality can be exhibited to pornography, masturbation, and what have you. If somebody has a very high libido and is always attracted to everything, a man who has a very high sexuality and is attracted to every kind of woman and is sexually aroused oftentimes when he sees physical things, he might engage in masturbation. A sexual education might begin to help this. And of course, when he's going to make a choice of a life partner, he has to be sure that he's making a choice with somebody who shares similar sexuality traits, so that of course they can meet each other's needs. I cannot tell you how passionate I am about better communication in the home, raising children, and having fantastic relationship with our partners. And if the underlying factor and the core of our life is sexuality, I think it's high time we begin to learn about our sexuality, learn how to guide our children better, and have to have better relationships by understanding our sexuality. There are tons and tons of resources on the internet you can consult if you want to learn even more about sexuality and how to express it. And of course, you can email me at anjolarobbin@gmail.com, and I'll be too glad to answer your questions. And then, once again, don't forget to subscribe to my channel, click on the notification icon so you can know when I drop new videos, and of course like my videos. Thank you very much. I'll see you soon. Bye.